Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be looking at a request I got for a ladder that does not affect the player character. So I'm going to step into this ladder space, and as long as I'm facing the ladder correctly, then I look up, I'll climb up. If I look down, I'll climb down. If while I'm attempting to climb up, I look off to the side, it'll drop me off the ladder. And I can apply that to a much larger ladder so you can kind of see the rate of climb that we have here. And if I look off to the side, it'll drop me down. All right, to get into it, we're going to open up a blueprint actor class, and this one, all I did is create a box trigger and size it to what would be relatively appropriate for the volume of a ladder, and I just set this little billboard up for a target so we can have a reference point. I created these functions, and it may look like not a lot of nodes off the bat, but it's actually not. It's a lot of repetition. So in this, I have an event begin play where we're going to cast the character. When you're going to be doing something like climbing or modifying physics on a perpetual basis, you want to reference the player, but you don't want to cast every frame. So we want to get this reference immediately on play, and then we can update it later if needed. If the players, for instance, dies, we can set up a delegate to connect that back. Right now, I'm going to set up a timer by function name, and what this does is it sets up a queue that says at some eventual time do something based off of the name of the function. I created a custom event called attempt climb, and I'm just going to use that same name here. And so that function name, I can also reference a function that's one of these non-timeline based functions that we can have often in the My Blueprint tab. For this, I set it up to 0.05 and looping. So this is, less than half as frequent as a on tick, which would be about a 0.02. So when we have this set up to loop, whenever this goes, it's going to fire off the attempt climb function every 0.05 seconds. So we're modifying things frequently while it's active, but we're not updating it on tick, and we're not going to be casting each frame. So we're trying to build some optimization into this. When we create a function or timer by function, we also designate a handle for that timer so that we can reference it later. So I'm going to set that handle, promote it to a variable so we can pause and unpause it as we go through, and then immediately I'm going to pause it. I'm just initializing my timer to say that I do have a timer that's going to account for these things, and I'm going to manage it later. For the trigger box that we had, I'm going to set up the overlap to check our reference for the player character. So rather than casting directly in this, because we could have it happen very frequently and we already have the reference, no reason to cast again, I'm just going to compare. Is the other actor the same character instance as the reference that I have stored over here as my variable? If it is, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to check the view orientation, which is a node that I created here. I'll show you that in just a second. And then I'm going to unpause the timer, and then that's going to attempt to climb. Let's look at this view orientation get here. So if I double click on this, this is a function that I created over here on the side. So get view orientation, it's going to return out the boolean of matched and a pitch sign. So what this is doing is it's going to get the player controller and get the actor forward vector. This is effectively getting you the direction that the camera manager is looking. So in what direction is the camera manager looking? We're going to get the yaw and pitch from that. So basically the side to side looking, the Z rotation, and the pitch would be the Y rotation is going to come out of that. So separating those values out, we're going to compare the yaw, which is the horizontal rotation on the Z axis. We're going to compare that to the actor rotation of the ladder. So the ladder's Z rotation and the camera's Z rotation is going to tell us whether or not the player is looking in the same direction as the ladder is intending you to climb. And we can increase this tolerance if you wanted to. I had a pretty narrow band, but whatever it is that you think is appropriate for the player to still be able to be on the ladder while looking side to side, this is where you would adjust that value. You can promote that to a variable, right? Ladder tolerance or whatever, view tolerance, and then you'd have that parameterized over here. And then for the pitch, I'm just going to get the sign of the pitch. And what this does is it's going to grab to say if the player is looking horizontally, get a 0. If they're looking up at all, return a 1. And if they're looking down at all, return a -1. So this just tells me if I'm looking above the horizontal to climb, if I'm looking below the horizontal to go down. And if the player is so precise to be able to look exactly horizontal, then they will have a 0 displacement. So I've made this function so that it doesn't need to be called in a line, so I don't need to have an exact line that comes into it by just clicking this pure button right here. So when I click pure, this is going to make it so that I get this version of the function. If I went back and I unclick pure, then you'll see this is now a callable function. So be mindful that you have the opportunity to pull things without having to cast them into a line. So I wouldn't need to plug it in here and then this, I could just connect it in a series of things. So with this matched value, so if the player is looking in the correct direction, we're going to unpause the timer. When I unpause the timer, it's going to start every 0.05 seconds. It's going to attempt to climb. And when it attempts to climb, it's going to re-verify while I'm in this. Every time it goes to fire, am I looking in the correct direction? So every time that it goes to fire the player up, it's going to validate that they're not looking to the side. If it does turn out that they're looking to the side, so they're not matched, then it will pause the timer and that will drop them off the ladder. If they are matched, it's going to launch character. And the direction that we're going to launch the character is going to be climbing straight up. And then what we're going to do is added a pin there. We're going to climb straight up. So I'm providing an impulse of 200 units. And we're going to get the view orientation and we're going to get the pitch sign. So if the pitch is positive, then we're going to multiply 200 by 1. And if it's negative, we're going to multiply it by -1. And that will affect the launch velocity. We're going to override the X, Y, and the Z. And the reason for this is if I'm climbing up the ladder, I can't use my lateral movement. If I was trying to strafe like this while on the ladder, it doesn't work. If I turn off the XY override, then I can crawl myself off the ladder and it can become a little awkward. So up to you on your implementation. With the Z override, you can choose basically how fast the player is going to go up. We change this value here, and we're going to go up significantly faster. And so depending on the style of game that you have, the rate of play that you want for the player, and the size of the ladders that you may include, Gojima-esque or not, you can set that up here. And of course, you can always promote that to a variable to parameterize it. But that's it. That's the implementation. So once you do that, you should be able to set up these volumes that would allow the player to be able to interact inside of the space. If I wanted to, we could rotate this over here just to verify that it does work. If I come over here, I go to climb, it's going to verify the direction of the ladder in relationship to the direction of the player. So you just want to make sure that you're applying this to some sort of surface that is going to allow the player to understand that it is a climbable surface. So vines, loose rocks, ladders. And anyway, this will get you what you need to do. Hopefully let you go out there and keep building.